Hey guys, Andrew Davidson here, and welcome back to another As Per My Ability video. This is going to be a good one. If you like what we do here, if you like our content, if you like our videos, if you like board games in general, please comment, like, subscribe, show us some love. Also, make sure you hit the little bell so you get notifications when we post new videos. I heard that if you hit the bell, it's 7 years good luck. But that's just what I've heard. You might want to give it a shot. Couldn't hurt. Anyways, I'm coming to you at 3 o'clock in the morning, in the middle of the night, from my apartment, and we're going to talk about last year's, or 2019's, Spiel des Jahres nomination. It did not win, but it is a legacy game, which of course I always have to get in front of the camera and do some talk about legacy games. And today's video is going to be about Dr. Rainer Knizia's My City. Now, My City is a legacy game. It comes with envelopes that you open up. You play through so many chapters. Each chapter of the story is 3 games. There are 8 chapters, so for those of you doing the math at home, this game plays 24 games, which is not actually a bad thing, as when you get into seeing kind of how the game works, you sit and you play every block or chapter of 3 games in one sitting. That's the way that they say you should do it. That's the way that I've been doing it. And the games are actually pretty smooth. They take very little time to play. I think we got in 3 games in about an hour, maybe give or take. So for an hour, play 3 different games. Then you're on to another chapter where you can stop. You reach like a stopping point, or you can keep going and play another 3 games. That's totally up to you. But that's kind of how the game works. It's a legacy game. How the game is it's a Tetris style tile laying, what they call a flip and fill or flip and build, I guess you would say, because you are building cities, or you're building cities, but you're building buildings in your city in order to connect. For those of you that are kind of on the older side like me that know what Tetris is, it's got that Tetris feel to it with different shapes coming up, and then you kind of rotate them to whatever to meet. And so this is not my forte. I'm going to say that right up front because I'm probably going to ramble a lot towards the end of the video. This is this is an abstract kind of spatial reasoning game, which is not my thing, but I do want to talk about this game since I have been playing it. Now, before I move into the rest of the video, I do need to say that this is a initial impressions video, which I probably will put in the title, meaning I have not played all 24 games. I believe I've played through chapters 4, so out of 8, so about halfways. And so what I'm going to be commenting on, first I'm going to be showing you a little bit about how the game works, so we'll cut away to the board, and then second I'm going to be talking about what I think and how I feel at least halfway through the game. Okay, so with having all that said out of the way, let's get to how the game plays. Let me show you. Okay guys, so here is a player board for My City. This player board, I should mention, is completely untouched of any legacy elements, as I am playing My City as a 2-player game, and it plays up to 4. So this is one of the mats that's not being used. So this completely no spoilers or anything. This is basically what you get out of the box and how it looks. All of the boards are exactly the same, except for your color and your faction will be different. And then everyone gets to name their city and write in here what their city is going to be called. So that will be different as well. Up here, what looks like coins are actually not coins. I do not know why, but they're considered progress tokens. And it's how the game keeps track of how many wins that people have had. So the goal to win the entire campaign is to have the most progress tokens. The goal to win in an individual game is right here. Everyone starts on 10, and you're going to want to have the most points on this point track. That's how you win individual games. Okay. let's talk about what we got here on the board. So as you can see, there's a forest, mountain over here, and a river going down the middle. Again, to repeat myself, all the boards start off the same. They will be gradually getting different. My board is very different from my opponent's board now that we've played through some due to stickers and things like that, legacy elements. But what you start off with is a river. You have some rocks, which are -1 point at the end of the game if you don't fill them up, if you don't build on them. And then you have trees, which are +1 point at the end of the game. Now, rocks you definitely want to build over. Trees, you're thinking you don't want to build over them, but essentially you're going to probably have to build over them because it's better to sacrifice 1 point to build over a tree to fulfill some objective to get, like, let's say 8 points. 1 point is definitely not going to cut it when I could put something and be like, oh, I've succeeded this, I get 8 points. So that's kind of the nature of the beast. The trees are +1 points, but honestly, with what I've played, you are going to have to sacrifice trees and be like, sorry, dude, I'm building there. And so how the game works is it's very quick. The board fills up very fast. It's probably a 20-minute game. They recommend that you play in 3 games, as I've already mentioned, in one chapter. And so what happens is it's kind of like bingo. Everyone just does simultaneous. So you will flip over a card. In this case, it's the yellow kind of elbow. Now, everyone has all of the same tiles. So they will look into their pile of tiles and they will find the yellow one and they will place it on the board. Now, the prerequisite for the very first turn is that you must connect to the river. So your first build has to connect to the river. You can't start off and just be like, I'm going to build off over here. You have to connect to the river. Now, corner connections do not count like that. See, my corner is connecting to the river. That's no good. You got to have at least something flush with the river. So let's say, okay, I'm going to start there. Now, every player is subjected to starting at the river. And then you flip another card, and then we got a square red building. So everyone will look and, let me see, find the square red. And now, this time, since we're past the first turn, the ruling is that you must connect to something that's already on the board. Again, corners do not count as connecting. You have to have at least something flush, like some square part flush. You are allowed to build, so like I could build down here, that would be good, connect there. But again, I'm not allowed to just kind of go, boom, I'm going to build up there because I'm not connecting to anything. So where you start your game is actually, as I've come to find, pretty important because wherever you place your first building, that's where you have to grow out from. Another thing is the river. You can build on the other side of the river, and that is, for all intents and purposes, considered connecting, even though there's a river between them. But the rules say that that is a legal play, so let's just leave it at that. Let's do one more to show. We got the Z blue building. So again, everyone has all of the same tiles. They'll look through their tiles and bring it out and kind of like play Tetris and figure out. See, now I have more options because I can like build over here. I can build it like this, and so you're going to be kind of figuring out how you're going to want to build. So let's just say I do something like that just for the sake of brevity. And so that's how the game will go. You can just continue flipping cards until someone can't or doesn't want to build something. At that point, then they will take a -1 point, but they will still be in the round. Or they can say, you know what, my city is done. I'm looking at all the tiles that I have left, and I don't think I'm going to be able to place any of them. As you can tell, your city fills up and you start running out of room. And so you can basically say, I don't want to just start taking negative points turn after turn after turn. I am going to resign from the game, which means you are done. It means everyone else will continue flipping cards and placing, but you are out. You are no longer allowed to jump back in and say, oh, I'll place that one. So, yeah, you can either say I pass and take a minus, or you can say I totally pass and you are out and you're ready to score your board. How the boards score, as I've kind of already mentioned, you get minus points for any of these green fields that are not covered, which, as you can tell, I haven't covered a whole bunch. -1 for the rocks, +1 for the trees. That's about it for scoring for just right out of the box. This game does a lot with scoring. Every time you open something up, you're going to score things differently. As you notice, the buildings are different colors, so different colored buildings will score differently. They'll add in new types of buildings. I don't want to spoil too much, but the scoring, you might say, sounds pretty just boring. But man, every game they add more scoring elements to it. You will be stickering your board, adding more things like trees and rocks and maybe some permanent buildings and things like that. As you move through the legacy aspect, you will be stickering over here some things that again get into the legacy aspect. The game, quite simply, starts off very simple, very much like a Tetris game, with not a whole lot of choice, not as far as a whole lot of thought, and then it just ramps up from there. So now that you've seen the board and you've seen the tiles and the deck of cards that get shuffled every game, let's get back to me talking about my kind of initial thoughts. My City is a very difficult game for me to talk about. It's difficult because, as I've already stated, the Tetris style spatial abstract reasoning thing is not my forte. I don't think I have anything fundamentally wrong with my brain, but it is hard for me to see those connections. I grew up with Tetris, but I did not play Tetris. I never built that muscle in my brain or worked out that muscle in my brain. So this is a hard game for me to talk about. So I'm going to talk about the negatives, and then I'll talk about the pros. So the negatives are, well, I've already listed one. It's not for people that have a hard time with spatial abstract reasoning, fitting pieces together. Okay, that one's simple enough. And I am someone that falls into that category. I'm being completely honest. Second of all, it has little to no theme. Third of all, it has little to no story. Essentially, what this game reminds me of is another deck building game, which is either the Harry Potter or the Toy Story deck building games, where you unlock boxes. You're basically just adding in more rules. There's no cohesive story. There's no, the mechanics really meet what the narrative's doing. In My City, the narrative is not even really there. It's almost non-existent. It's basically you read something saying oh, some people have come to town and so now they want to have churches, and so now we're playing with churches. Spoiler, there are churches in the game. Whatever. There's nothing to really spoil in this game because there's no narrative. It's just essentially one huge game that's got a lot of, I assume, rules, and they're just kind of doling it out to you little by little. So in that respect, it's a negative. It's a con. It feels very much like the Harry Potter deck building game, which is a game I actually love. But to call it a legacy game, yes, you do sticker your board. Yes, you do write on the board. And yes, the game does change from game to game. But man, legacy games to me they're very narrative driven. They're very thick as far as thematic. They're very thematic. And this game is very superficial. It's tiles. Games run super short. Like I said, you play them in sets of 3. Every game scores a little bit different. Yellow buildings are going to score a different way. And now blue buildings are going to score differently. Or you're going to sticker more stuff on that you can build around or build over or whatever. It doesn't even matter. So to end that, I'm going to say the game in regards to being a legacy game, it's pretty much just you open up a thing, you move on, and it just says, hey, here's just a little more rules to play. Just a little bit. They just deal just a little more rules out until I assume you'll get down to the 24th game and there'll be all of this different strategy. Now, having said that, let's go to the pros. That could be a really cool moment. I simply don't know. As I've said, this is just an initial impression. I have played through about half of the game so far, and what I've seen so far has not impressed me, especially since it was marketed as a legacy game. Kosmos, it's made by Kosmos, and Rainer Knizia, who one of my favorite card games of all time is called Lost Cities, which he developed. So why not? Legacy game by Knizia. I also like El Dorado, or The Road to El Dorado, or Quest for El Dorado, whatever it's called. Another game of his. It's like deck building with racing. It's fantastic. This game has not really impressed me so far. 2009 Spiel des Jahres nomination. Now, it didn't win, thank goodness. Some other game pictures won that I have not played, so I have no real juxtaposition as far as like if they got it right or if they got it wrong. But out of the thousands and thousands and millions of games that come out every single year, is My City a Spiel des Jahres nomination? In my opinion, absolutely not. Is My City even a great legacy game? No, not even really a great legacy game. However, oddly enough, and I cannot put words to this, it's quite ineffable, I'm enjoying it. I enjoy it because it's short. I do struggle with the spatial stuff where I'm like, oh, my partner that I'm playing with will point out something like, oh, you can't build there, you have to go here, and I'm just like, oh, that's right, I can't. It's hard for me, but I'm enjoying it. The games are short. I have not been winning a whole lot of the games, but it does have what they would call a catch-up mechanic, where it's like, oh, you won, so you get progress points, but I lost, and so I get something to help me with my board, maybe a sticker, maybe, whatever. And so, with negative, no story, no legacy feel. Like, the tiles are just plain. There's no three-dimensional element to it to make it look cool. The boards, the artwork, none of it really pops. There's really nothing about My City. I guess I should say I do. The cover is kind of cool, but I mean, outside of that, there's nothing in this game that just gets me going. I'm a very thematic guy, and I'm a very story-driven guy, as you guys know. That's the point of really kind of starting this channel at the very get-go about a year ago. And yet, I'm still playing it. In fact, just the other night, my friend came over, Shanine, who's part of the As Per My Ability team, and it was like, My City? Yeah, let's play My City. Now, we could have played 10 to 12 other games that we want to work on, or we want to learn, or we want to play again because we just played them once and we want to try it again. But it was like, I feel like playing My City. It's quick. I'm having fun with it. So this is a really hard thing for me to talk about in regards to any type of a review. Now, I always joke to people, I do not do reviews on my channel. I don't say like, this is a great game, I give it a 4, this one's not okay, I give it a 1.5. But as of right now, I am enjoying the game. I cannot deny myself that. I am sitting down going, yeah, okay, let's play through another bulk of 3 games of My City. Let's see what happens. Let's see what the next envelope says. It'll give you the title of the chapter, and it'll say something like I said, churches. And you're like, I wonder what that's going to be about. And you'll open it up, and it just kind of adds more rules and more things for you to worry about in the game. So it's just a way to ramp people up. So, not final thoughts, because I have not finished the game. Like I said, I'm going to repeat myself. You could get to Chapter 7, Chapter 8. You could get down to those last 6 games, and I could be impressed. I could be like, this is way cool. As of right now, I'm not super impressed, and yet I am having fun. So I really don't know what else to say. I'm just going to kind of leave you guys with that. Maybe do some research on your own. If you are looking, I will say this before I sign off. If you are looking for a legacy game, this is not what you're going to really want. If you're looking for a story-based game, this is not a game that's going to help you. Legacy has grown to be something that is lots of like stickering and uncovering and writing on things and destroying cards, and there's very, very minimal of that in this game. And like I said already, there's practically no story whatsoever, really. So if you're looking for a legacy game, I would recommend Clank Legacy Acquisitions Incorporated. That's a really good legacy game. Any of the Pandemic legacies, like those are good legacy games. So if you go into this the way that I was going into it, thinking that it was going to be a really cool legacy game, man, I'm very disappointed. Spiel des Jahres nominee? No, it's a tile placement game. Ugh. And yet I'm having fun. So I'm going to wrap this video up by saying you're going to have to just make up your own decision. I am having fun so far. My initial impressions are, yeah, it's a fun game, but it's not a fun legacy game. So that's it for me. Thanks everyone for watching. I'm Andrew Davidson, and I will see you guys all at the next video.